Hi everyone, and welcome to my tutorial on how I approach a commission from start to finish. I'm filming this from home, so please excuse the poor audio and the simple editing, but it has been highly requested, so I kind of thought I'd give it a shot. I love watching these kinds of videos on YouTube, but I haven't seen many that go super in depth, so I'm hoping this will be interesting for you guys. So this commission was a tavern scene of a D&D campaign commissioned by someone who had received artwork from me before. This commission was also a gift for one of the players, which is such a nice idea. Commissions are a great gift idea for Christmas or birthdays or just as a thank you, and if you happen to play D&D, they're a great way to thank the DM or to commemorate the end of your campaign. So I've done a few tavern commissions before, and usually my struggle with them is to make them not too symmetrical, because sometimes it can look a bit unnatural or staged, but in this case the client deliberately wanted the piece to resemble The Last Supper by Leonardo Da Vinci, which means the more symmetrical the better. So Photoshop's symmetry tool was super helpful. It's a little butterfly symbol at the top, and it just makes it so much quicker and so much easier to get a perfectly symmetrical background. Here I'm just planning the character positions. One thing that I really appreciated from this client is that they already knew where to put the characters and what they wanted each character to be doing. So all I have to do is follow the instructions, fill in the gaps, and make sure that the composition is balanced, because we want the action to be evenly distributed across the canvas. Usually in larger D&D commissions I have to make sure that every character is equal and no character steals too much of the spotlight, but as this commission was a gift for one particular player, the client actually requested that the middle character be the main focus, with the DM pouring him a drink and the dwarven chef ladling him some soup. So let me introduce you to the characters. This character in the middle, his player was the receiver of this gift, and the character's name is Jean-Pierre. He's a high elf druid with celestial star powers. Gazpacho is the appropriately named chef of the group. Yes, that's his name, Gazpacho. He's a dwarf monk dressed like a sailor, and he's just serving everyone some soup. Bathilda is the Gnome Paladin in full plate armor. She's very upbeat but naive in her belief in the good of others. I kind of struggled with her. I wasn't sure how I wanted her expression to look, because on one hand she was described to have a happy personality, but on the other she was losing at Jenga, so I eventually decided on a worried smile. Marble is the Tabaxi, who is slender and tall. I struggled with her pose a bit, because although she's slender and tall, the client wanted her hunched over and also involved in the game of Jenga. Dyre is the Dwarf Cleric. He's very hairy, but he's also bald. The client specifically requested to have him drinking beer out of a bowl. The DM was requested to be the bartender of the tavern. This is quite common for D&D commissions, so if you want to include the DM, making them a bartender or some other NPC is a really great option. In this case, they sent me a photo of the DM to use as a reference. Sergin is the Amethyst Dragonborne Bard. The client requested him on the flank, playing a pan flute. It was really hard to imagine a Dragonborn making that O shape with its mouth, but somehow I managed to make it work. He's easily the best dressed of the group, so I made sure to add extra furs and buckles to his clothes. You can see I flipped the canvas quite a bit to refresh my eyes and make sure that the anatomy is working. And one very important thing was missing. You can't have soup without some bread, so I added a loaf of bread onto the table. I also added a bit of a vignette to draw our eyes towards the centre. At this stage, the client came back with a little bit of feedback to make Marble's legs more humanoid, Gazpacho more grumpy, Dyre a little bit more involved in the scene, but most of the feedback was for Bathilda. Her proportions definitely could have been more gnomish, and her face was missing that bright youthfulness, so I changed her expression and gave her a wilder haircut. The client also requested that I added her weapons and her shield, which is actually a door. It wasn't exactly to scale, but I had to fit it in somehow. The thing that I love about these giant commissions with so many characters is the challenge of incorporating all of the colour palettes of each character without overwhelming the piece with too many colours. So I always start with adding the base colour, and it's okay if this looks terrible, we're going to fix it later. Once the base colours are added, I add the lighting, and it's really important to do this incrementally, especially because the scene has so many light sources, like the warm lights from the various candles and fireplace, as well as the cool lights from the windows. So once the base colours were done, I added a brown multiply layer just to dim everything and neutralise the base colours. And then I added an orange colour dodge layer for the cast light of the fireplace chandeliers and torches, and a blue colour dodge layer for the rest of the room to really contrast those warm lights. I also added a bit of a purple fog layer with a soft brush to separate the characters from the background. And finally, I added this artificial spotlight onto the main centre character to emphasise his importance. And I tried some different blending modes with that until I found something that I liked. Finally, I added some basic circular shadows to the characters to really place them in the background. And now all these various colours are much more cohesive. I made the line work of the characters a dark red colour, especially around the skin or the fur, which stops the colours from getting muddy and allows me to seamlessly transition into the painting phase. And I added some blush to the characters' noses and cheeks and ears, which just brings so much more life to the characters. The customer requested that the wine be ice wine, so I added a snowflake to the bottle, but this just wasn't cutting it. So I was thinking about making the wine a blue colour, but then I was worried it would turn purple, so I came up with a pretty cool solution. I used a smoky, cloudy sort of brush to add some frost emitting from the wine. I kept painting each character one at a time and just made sure that I was always taking the light source into account. Every character has a nice, soft, warm glow on their faces coming from the primary light above, as well as a harsh, colder rim light coming from the secondary light of the windows. I made sure to add some subsurface scattering to Bathilda's ear coming from that backlighting, and I made sure to add light to the Jenga pieces and the table. For Marble, I made sure to use big brush strokes on her ears to get that thick fur texture. Sergin, because he's an amethyst dragon, I really wanted to add that glowy, semi-transparent gem look, and it took me a couple of tries. The first try was a little too perfect and it looked like he was made of jelly. The second try was a little too rough, but then I combined those two layers and they kind of balanced each other out. The trick to that crystal look is adding lots of colour variation, so I made sure that the highlights were like a warmer purple and the shadows were a cooler purple. One trick I love to do in all my commissions to make the characters feel more incorporated into the scene is to give them a bit of a glow. I use a soft brush and gently soften the lightest parts of the characters as if each highlight was emitting some bounce light. This also allows me to blur any areas that are too sharp and add more contrast to any areas that are too subtle. I added some steam coming from the bowls of soup, and this added so much character to the piece. It really feels like the soup was fresh out of the fireplace. For the wine glasses, I added some highlights, and I know these modern wine glasses probably aren't super historically accurate, but it's a made-up world, and I wanted to add some other textures that weren't just wood. The scene had enough wood already. I forgot to add Jean-Pierre's chalice star sign magic, so I used a sparkle brush with a colour dodge mode for a quick and easy fix, and I made sure to add the light of the nearby candle onto his clothes. As for the rest of the commission, it was simply a matter of cleaning up all the details. I was super happy with the mood at this stage, so I wrote a list of all the non-character things I needed to detail, like the door, the fireplace, and the barrels. This is a pretty tedious stage, but it's super rewarding at the end. I defined all the different textures, like adding some grain to the wood and some noise to the walls and some rocks to the doorway. Things like drips from the pot or arm hair on the dwarf or stripes on the tea towels really take the piece a long way. Even some holes in the floor add some character to the tavern. I added some scratches and embellishments to Bathilda's armor to help it read more like metal. The trick to metal is having really light lights and really dark darks to make it seem really shiny. At this stage, I realised that I had plenty of bowls of soup but no spoons, so I added a few spoons and called it a day. Do let me know how I did in the comments in terms of the artwork itself and also video editing and commentating. If there's anything in particular you would like to see, do let me know, and I really hope you guys enjoyed the video.